Hi, I'm John Costanza of SunPower Builders. In 1978, when I was 19, I had the opportunity to build the first hot air solar house for a customer in Haverford, Pennsylvania. It looked like this when we were done. It had a very steeply sloped roof that allowed for for winter sun to strike the roof. The roof surface was a series of metal pans covered with a Tuff-X plastic glazing that allowed the sunlight to penetrate, heat the air on the roof, and circulate it from the roof down to the basement into a heat sink, where it then recirculated. The end result was a huge air collector, which was the entire roof. Now, at the time we were building this, nobody had built an air collector this huge or to try to heat the entire house at that time in our area. So we had to do a lot of experimenting with materials, finding proper fasteners, finding batten strips. In this case, it was aluminum hand railing that we used and butyl tape. It had to be able to expand and contract so that, because this huge expanse of plastic needed to move. We ended up finding a method that we could screw the battens down, and ultimately the section of the roof looked like this. After the plywood, we put down metal, then we laid on, actually this is tin like ductwork, then we laid batten strips down to create an airspace, and on top of that airspace we installed these metal pans that interlocked, and that created about 1.5 inch gap up and down the whole roof for air to move. There's a little bit of a close-up on it. And in this picture, you'll also notice there's a little hole here. And those were located in areas that allowed us, strategically located, that would allow the air from the basement to rise up in through a plenum into the soffits, and then as it got heated, it would rise up the roof. The holes that were along the top then would draw the air back down through a duct and a plenum, and it would bring the warmed air across a heat sink, which was 30 tons of rock in the basement. Here are some other pictures of the soffits. They had removable panels because we really didn't know what to expect, and we wanted to be able to do some testing. So after the metal pans were installed, they were coated with a high temperature paint. Again, we had to do testing to find the right kind of paints. We ended up using an automobile engine paint. Now there are selective surfaces that can be used to paint on that are specialized for these types. On top of the batten strips then went a tape that allowed movement, and then the glazing panels went down. Ultimately, you said we ended up with an entirely glazed roof that captured the sun, allowed the airspace between the glazing and the selective surface to heat up, and then circulated that through to the basement into a rock storage, and ultimately that heat that was stored in the rock storage was then distributed throughout the house. That was the sole source of heat in that home. I'm John Costanza, and in 1978 I built my first solar house. I was 19 years old, and I was a dreamer.